What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Pens and Tea. My name is Carrie, and man, I hope you guys had a great holiday, whatever it is that you celebrate, Christmas, Hanukkah, anywhere in between. I hope that it was awesome and you got to spend some quality time with your family or your friends or anyone that you love, and that you're all happy and safe. And I had a pretty great one. I didn't get any fountain pen related things because I never do, because I'm the only person in my entire family who really, even for the most part, knows what a fountain pen is. So it's just a safer bet not to. But for those who are wondering, I did buy myself a cool few little minis to paint. This one happens to be obviously a double-headed troll. These are from WizKids. I've never ordered from them before. I'm gonna have to patch up some of their priming potentially, but these are supposedly primed and ready to go. So I have one that's like as big as this, and then I have some that like are as small as this. So that's going to be really fun to paint those soon enough. But today I am straight up copyright protection, theft, whatever it is. So as you can see from the title, yes, I am honestly just straight up copying SBRE Brown, Stephen Brown. He's been around since the dawn of time with the fountain pen YouTube community. He did a video very recently, so please go watch that first before you watch this one. He did a video very recently where he talked about how you can sort of not repurpose fountain pens, but take pens that you've had for a long time that you don't really use because you don't necessarily love the way that they write, and how you can sort of make them new again and make them part of like your everyday collection. Drab from fab, as some people want to say. And so I watched this whole video. I really liked it, and it really resonated with me because I've actually done that with a lot of my pens, more than what even you see here today. But I wanted to kind of run you through some of what I did to these. His main focus is changing the nib if you can. So on a lot of ones that have like easy to remove like nib units, so like this Bennu for example, any Twisbees, things like that, anything with like a standard like number 6 size nib that will say straight up you can change them to just swap out the actual nib unit. And you can buy like different nibs for them. So like this one, for example, has a fine nib, but let's say you didn't want that fine nib anymore. You could buy like a medium, broad, stub, whatever. And then that way you kind of like renew that fountain pen, and it goes from something that you love to something, or that you don't love to something that you do love. And that's really easily done. Some of them you don't necessarily have to swap out the whole collars and everything. You can just pull out the actual nib itself. That'll be friction fit. Do check the manufacturer information on any of the websites that you buy your pens from, and they'll tell you straight up if you can or can't. But really, there's only 3 nibs. There's like Jowo, Bock, and Schmidt. The vast majority of pen companies will use those 3 because it's very expensive to make your own. Visconti is one that does. And Sailor can also be a bit of a pickle as well, but you can, especially on a lot of these smaller indier brands, so like Franklin Kristoff, Bennu, Edison Pen Company, like a lot of those, they don't make their own nibs because they're so expensive. So you can swap them out, no problem, and that is probably the ultimate easiest fix to any fountain pen. But I want to run you through a couple that I've done here. So for those that have been watching my content for quite some time, you already know what I did to this. This is the Pilot Custom 912 fountain pen. This is the Falcon nib. So it does like spread its tines. There you go. It's like a flexier pen. I did not replace the nib, I actually replaced the feed. This is one of the few pens that you can relatively easily. You can buy an ebonite feed for this pen instead of the plastic one that it comes with. I bought the I bought the feed from nibsmith.com, but there are a few other places that you can pick them up from. And that took this pen from being like, a pretty decent fountain pen, but would railroad from time to time, to being a wet fire hose that I absolutely love and adore. And this is basically one of my all-time favorite pens. So I didn't even have to touch the nib on that one, just the feed. This Sailor here was a bit more of, not an issue, but like definitely a bit of a pickle because you can't easily replace Sailor nibs or feeds or anything like that. It's just not something that they allow you to do. You can sometimes buy like Sailor housing units, like on eBay or whatever, but they go so fast and they are way expensive. So it's just not really worth it, in my opinion. This pen I bought secondhand from someone in Australia, and I don't know why I said it that way. And it wasn't the greatest. It was a little dry, it was a little scratchy, the tines are slightly misaligned. So I actually sent this to Solomon from the Toronto Pen Company, and he tuned this nib up for me. And I absolutely love it. So this one obviously is not the easiest of fixes because I had to send it away. But it is definitely something that I would recommend that you take a look at, because I did the same with this as well. I've talked about this many times also, where the nib was just awful. It was dry, it was scratchy again, came misaligned. Oh, hi, honey. Parker just came in. And so I sent this to Emmy at penventure.com, and he tuned it up no problem for me, and it was beautiful. So sending your pens away to be tuned is not the easiest solution out of everything, but honestly, they're dynamite. Like, just absolutely dynamite. One thing that is super easy, if you do have multiple of the same pens that you can swap those nib units, simply just swapping the nib unit between them. So for example, when I first bought this pen here, this had a stub nib on it, and I don't always want to use a stub nib in my day-to-day life, because it's a little bit too broad for like my journaling, my everyday writing. But I was so sad all the time, like looking at this finish is stunning, never being able to use it, and primarily always using this one. So I thought, why am I doing that? See, this one has the stub nib there. So this one is really easy. Parker just hopped up on the table, because it is also just a whole nib unit that you can just take out and swap. You can swap them in 5 seconds. And that meant that instead of just using my burgundy and nothing else, you can now use the blue one, which I hadn't used in like multiple years, because it's just, I don't have the super desire for stubs all the time. And it's so easy. You just grab the base of the nib and feed and you twist, and that's it. That's all you gotta do for these ones. So that one's super simple. Now, of course, there's a bit of a financial cost there because you have to have 2 of the same pen. But if you are in this hobby, like obviously you are if you're watching, especially 9 minutes in, chances are you potentially could have multiple of the same pen. And then these two are a little bit different. So with the Franklin Kristoff, I swapped the nib altogether. So this initially came with a broad nib, which very much similar to the 1.1 stub, that's a little too broad for me. The broad on here was way too broad. Way too broad. While that's fun to play around with, I definitely have smaller writing. And what's interesting enough is that this I couldn't use because the 1.1 stub is too broad, and yet this is a cursive italic, so, you know, sharper than a broad, but still a broader line. I just got ink on myself. But I switched that. I'm gonna try to get that off. Well, I switched it to being the stub on this nib because it is a much finer line than this one. And I'll do a quick writing sample here. I'm still attempting to use this Rhodia notebook if you haven't watched the last few videos, because I'm having a time with it. Where's my empty page here? I don't know. Oh, there we go. So this beauty is, wow, I did not spell gorgeous. Oh man, I was looking at Parker because I think she was gonna step in something she shouldn't have. Wow, it's still not very good looking through the camera. Anyway, broader downstroke, thin, crisp side strokes. I've talked about this pen a decent amount. In case you're curious, the ink is Diamine Oxford Blue. But I now use this pen to plan out like my D&D campaigns and stuff like that, and I've gone through multiple converter fills without ever having cleaned this out yet. I just keep refilling it because it's just gorgeous and it makes me so happy. But yet when there was the broad nib in it, I never used it. So quite simply, this is probably the biggest example of a change next to this one. So this is a pen that I bought, 2017, I believe. 2017, I think. Anyways, I bought it at a fountain pen show, the Toronto Scriptus show, and I bought it with a fine nib. And that fine nib still practically wrote like a broad. Now, it was gorgeous, like it was super wet, it was very smooth, I loved that, but it was way too broad. And again, I have very small writing in my journaling, so I didn't want something that small. So someone reached out to me and actually said, hey, like I have an extra fine nib that I don't want because it's too small, but I kind of want your fine. If it writes more like a broad, medium broad, can we swap? And I said, okay, let's do it. And much like the Auroras, this one's really easy to just pop out the whole nib unit. Of course, I will caveat all of this. Swapping anything in your pens that didn't come that way will void your warranty. But it means you actually get to use your fountain pens. So just some interesting ways here of how to potentially like fix, replace, update, all of your pens that you really hadn't used before, or just, wasn't super happy with. You can get them tuned, you can replace them, you can replace the feeds of certain ones, swap some nibs, have a good time. If you like the way it writes, you just find, like, let's say you have a Bennu, for example, and you like the way it writes, you don't want to replace anything physical, but you're just not like super loving it. Honestly, just get a new ink. Ink is pretty inexpensive, especially if you're getting some samples. Just get some new ink. Throw the new ink in there and then have fun playing around with the new ink. And that excitement from that ink could potentially then transfer to the pen and get you invigorated again to use those pens. Just try something new. Like I said, even if you're going the ink route, get an ink maybe that you wouldn't ordinarily try, so that you kind of are super excited to use it. Just kind of look for ways to get a new experience out of your pen, to sort of jumpstart that new feeling again. So that's what I've done to these. I've done others in the sense of when you purchase direct from a lot of these pens companies as well, like this one, for example. If you buy from Nibsmith, you can have them tuned before they're even shipped to you as well. You may have to wait a little bit longer. Some companies charge for that, some don't. But you can have them custom tuned to your liking before they even get to you. So that way you can also just ensure that the pen will very more likely write the way that you want it to when it gets there, so you don't have to do any of this, but totally your call. So let me know in the comments section down below if you've done anything like this, or if you're thinking about doing anything like this. If anybody has any nibs that they want to swap, write that in the comment section down below so that other people can check it out and you guys can kind of connect with one another to see if you can do something like that. But other than that, hit that like button, hit that subscribe. We're almost to the end of December where my Monday through Friday videos will stop, but I will then post Monday and Friday instead of Monday through Friday. But yeah, check out the link to my Patreon in the description if you want to help further support me and what I do on this channel. But otherwise, I will see you very soon, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.